Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal on this July 19th, 2016 day on our calendar. I'm your host, Greg Anthony, and you're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. You can catch my show every evening from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. That's on FirstAmendmentRadio.com Pacific Time. They also play the show at 11 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you, First Amendment. And if you can't catch it there, go to my long-standing website at arcticbeacon.com, and you can get shows going back, almost 10 years. Quite how time flies. And, we're going to go back in time a little bit and update a story that I did almost 8 or 9 years ago. And my guest today is a former Catholic nun named Keri Burnor. Now, she's written a book called Divine Challenge, and I wanted to go over the book with her and update her story and find out what she's been doing for the last 8 years. But she was involved, she was sexually harassed when she was still a Catholic nun, and that's led her into a life that, boy, you won't believe. She tried to just get to the truth years ago about what happened to her, and I documented in many stories and shows how that she was basically, they made the Vatican and the Catholic Church made her life a living hell. She's on the East Coast, this happened on the East Coast. And not only was she being harassed, but many people that she, attorneys that she tried to hire to get to the truth about how she was sexually harassed. And the story continues. She's written a book about it, and I wanted you listeners to hear what it's about. But let me just preface it by reading parts of what the back cover says. It says, "This is the story of a hermit nun whose life and vocation was taken hostage by the very institution she passionately loved and vowed to serve. This compelling story, the book she's written, Divine Challenge, reveals what a renowned author named Jack Goldenflame identifies as a spiritual gang rape by those who promise to be fathers and spiritual guardians to her. The betrayal went so deep that her desire to take up the call of the Lord would eventually take her to a place where the very foundation of her faith would be shaken. All that she knew of God and church would be called into question." And with that, let me get to Keri Burnor. Just a second, Keri. I know you're waiting here. How you doing today? I want to talk about this book.
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me, Greg. It's such a pleasure. I'm so pleased to see that you're still out here doing radio shows. And it's an honor to be your guest again.
All right. Well, tell us about, I guess it's good to go back a little bit and maybe refresh our listeners on your story, how this all began for you. And then, of course, in this hour, I just want to concentrate on your book. But go ahead so people get an idea who you are.
Excellent. I am a former Roman Catholic sister or nun. I was in the Diocese of Worcester, Massachusetts. Served about 5.5 years as a nun in community with the Sisters of St. Anne's House, St. Benedict Center in Still River, and went into the contemplative life to become approved as under Canon Law 603, which is a provision for hermits in the diocese, in any diocese. This is the code of, I think, 1983, where that provision was made for those who feel that they have a calling to live in a more singular presence, but yet at the same time, those who want to maintain a connectivity to their church.
So basically, you were a cloistered nun, right?
Well, the hermit life does actually accommodate more of a cloistered lifestyle. However, because the hermit does take care of their own needs, they still need to interface with the public.
Okay, go ahead.
So basically, in the process of moving towards this goal, I ended up having an interaction with a priest at St. Joseph's Abbey. This has been long known, it's been out there, on the internet. Several of the websites carried this story. And so bottom line is this priest ended up assaulting me within the context of a confession. And upon discovering that other people were also sexually assaulted this way, the priest basically just lunged out and grabbed my left breast. And he also, gave me a strange hug, which later I learned through the Stobierski law firm. It's called a frottage, where they're seeking some sort of sexual connection, but only with clothing on. So it's a strange kind of a hug where the priest rubs his chest on you in this instance. So I did everything in my power to bring this to the monastery officials, and their reaction was very strong. First, there was conversations between myself and Father Isaac Keeley, who was the prior at the time, who headed the internal investigation. And the conversation in sequence shows that there was interchange of trust on one conversation, maybe totaling about 9 hours, if you count the 5 different discussions that took place in April of, I believe it was 2002. And then the following conversation with Father Isaac would end up into something where trust would be ruptured, and it was pretty much a mind game type of a scenario. And so I ended up asking for a priest friend of mine, Father Peter Joyce, who I clean churches at his church, St. Mary's Church in Southbridge. And Father Peter joined me in a conversation with Father Isaac and Father Gabriel Bertineri to see if we can bring a resolution to this, because I didn't feel they were taking the allegations seriously. And so during the sequence of that discussion, I was realizing that I wasn't dealing with somebody that had the interest or desire to deal with the problem with integrity. There was this desire to cover it up, to conceal it, and to find ways of using the allegation to undermine my credibility. So the Father Peter Joyce called Mary Sawicki of the District Attorney's Office in Worcester. She headed I think it was the Child Abuse Sex Unit at the time. And I ended up being involved in a criminal case against Father Joseph Chacon, who's now since passed. I think he passed away in 2004, I believe, or thereabouts in November. And so what you're going to see in the book is an unfolding of the story, and in very vivid detail. A lot of times, in the past, there was, the idea of, well, there's not solid, documentation verifying, what these other people have gone through, and I've had to go to great efforts to obtain that documentation. It took me about 8 months to get the documents where my name was on it with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I was denied the documents. And the reason for that was because during the trial, after I launched the trial, I was shown documentation indicating that the Abbey definitely was aware that after interviewing the other victim, Miriam Singleton, that prior to going to court with my situation, which is an exact, replica or duplicate of what I went through, this woman went through something over 10 years prior to my experience. And so that's what urged me to bring the matter forward. I figured, well, this is not a one-time problem. This is something that's going on more than once.
So what happened in your court case? What happened in the court case?
Oh, of course I lost. It was a botched case. Anthony Murata was the attorney that was on, we only spent like 2 to 3 hours together. But I will give him some credit that he did share me the documents, later, indicating that there was an investigation done by Trooper Thomas Ryan. And in the investigation, it showed that Father Isaac Keeley admits that Father Joseph admits to sexually assaulting Miriam Singleton. And so Miriam was spoken with by the Abbey prior to the trial in 2003, March 13th.
So
Miriam
let me just add that,
do
you think the fix was in, that you didn't get a fair trial?
Absolutely. I definitely believe that. For one reason or another, I started to look into things more deeply and realized that, okay, there's something bigger going on, and I wasn't exactly sure what the big deal was. If it's just a boob grab, right? To me, I was just like, okay, this is, of course I was shocked in the middle of confession. I was jolted out of a spiritual, connection to Christ, and so therefore, it's more than just a boob grab to me, but in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of the Abbey, to me, I can't imagine why they would want to cover that up. What's the big deal? So why would they make allowances to admitting that they did this to Miriam Singleton and not make the same allowance for me or even have that same courtesy? So as time moves on, I end up seeing that there is a kind of like a template, and that the monastery has, in particular, Father Damien and Father Isaac, Father Damien Carr, who was the abbot at the time, they were maintaining a specific way of handling these issues, because it would seem to me they didn't know what to do with me. They were afraid of this information getting out there. And so once they realized the information got out there in the hands of the criminal office division of the district attorney's office, now their job was to do what they could to destroy my credibility. And for some time that did work, until I came back flying out with my spiritual fists saying, hey, I'm not going to let that story linger the way it was written by Lucarelli in the Telegram and Gazette. So I won in the court of public opinion, and to this day I still win in that sense. But what am I winning and what are we losing here? The essence of this is, if it's just a boob grab, then what's the big deal? And so, so looking at this and continuing in the story, ultimately the story is about taking full responsibility for our lives. That's what this part one, this is the Divine Challenge was written to illustrate the fact that this was a family relationship that I had. It was very close to several months within the monastery, and it was a very sisterly, brotherly type of care that we had for each other. And I was already previously abused in a family setting, prior to becoming Catholic. And so, Brother Philippe and Brother Patrick there were very close friends of mine. They knew that I went through that experience, and that's why there was a tenderness towards me. And so when I went through this in the Catholic Church, the pattern seems to be implied that, again, okay, then I guess I must have to leave. I must have to leave my family, because I left my first family. I left my family when I was a little, 16, 17 years old, to get away from all of those things that were not in alignment with my goals, which was the spiritual life. I knew that when I was young, very young, at 9 years old, that my life was to go towards Jesus in the spiritual life, and that's why I converted to the Catholic Church, starting at 15 and culminating at 17 through the RCIA program at St. Joseph's Church in Charlton. So there's this deep relationship. And so this pattern that keeps coming up again is, I have to leave. I have to be divorced from my family. And these people in the book, it's illustrated that we are truly connected, that there's a familial relationship. And there's a lot of fun things in the book. It illustrates the story, but at the same time, it outlines that there's a pattern going on, and that what I seek to accomplish, and this is just to whet your appetite, in the second book, it's already kind of written, we're just kind of getting the rough edges cleaned up around it, is all of us need to take responsibility for what's going on in our lives. And if we can't have compassion on ourselves, then we can't love anybody else. It's just not even going to be possible. And the Lord Jesus stipulates in the scripture that we are to love others the way we love ourselves. That's a great commandment. To love God, with your whole heart, mind, strength, and soul. Your whole being is to be oriented to loving and clinging to God. And so I have come to a place where this accusative sensibility is not what I'm interested in. it's easy to say, oh, the Jesuits this and the Vatican that and the Catholic Church this, and I am not convinced that people cannot change. I'm convinced that they, because I already received reviews on my book, just the first book, just the first volume here, and monks and priests in the Catholic Church have said this is an excellent catalog of what goes wrong when we're not in a true spiritual orientation. So this book is moving people. I've received phone calls from monasteries, not only just Roman Catholics. I mean, there's actually some Orthodox monks and priests and just fellow lay people are reading the book. And what I'm doing now is I've made the book free and available for download on PDF for the purposes of collecting, first of all, to get the story out there, but second of all, it's free for a limited time. I'll certainly let everyone know the time at which it's not going to be free. But I'm collecting a series of reviews. And so far I'm receiving incredible reviews on this book. And then what we're going to do is we're going to post the reviews page up. And then we're going to have, the book available in paperback and everything. But we're doing a more formalized editing right now of Divine Challenge #1. We're doing some rough editing for book #2. But basically, my message in all of this is I do believe people can change. I also do believe that if we believe we're victims of our past, we will be stuck. And I love to use the analogy that we could be stuck in a prism or like a hexagon. If we are inside, standing in a hexagon, if we rise above it, we look down and it's a diamond. If we go below the hexagon and we're trapped inside of it, it becomes a prison. And our true selves are never known. We're not knowing our true selves, which becomes divine. We're being called, all of us, to become divine, divinized, through connection with Christ, through connection with Christ, who is love. That's the key. So all of this is to say is, whatever the Abbey is connected to, or whatever their allegiances are, they may not even know why they're doing what they're doing. Sometimes people don't even know what they're doing. And that's what the Lord said on the cross. Father, forgive them. So they know not what they're doing. Because
well, if I could ask you this,
knew what we're really doing,
Keri,
we wouldn't be doing them because we'd be truly happy.
Right.
Inside.
Can you hear me?
So that is aiming for. And, I've been reading a lot of scriptures, and one of them that comes up is, what does it profit a man to gain the entire world and suffer the loss of his soul? That's a huge scripture right there. That's Mark chapter 8, verse 36. And there's a couple of other things, too, that, I want to bring up. I want to bring up what the rule of St. Benedict. Brother Alphonsus shared this with me, and I thought this was really poignant. And I'd love to share that with you, Greg.
Okay, I just want to check, though. You can hear me okay?
Perfect so far, yes.
Okay, just before we do that, just tell me, I know when this happened to you and you found out some things about other nuns and other people being abused in the Catholic Church, you fell away from the Catholicism. What have you found since?
Ooh, you're awesome. I love the way you get to the gold. I've embraced Orthodoxy, and I didn't leave the Catholic Church due to the abuse. Okay, I still remained within the bosom of the Catholic Church for a pretty long time until 2008. So the abuse occurred in 2001. It took me about 7 years to get to the truth, to figure out how can we diagnose this problem. And like I was saying, I do believe people can change, but I also believe that there are systems set in place that won't lend one to success. And speaking with Sister Paula Kelleher, in the book it really illustrates this. I mean, she's a vicaress for the religious of the Diocese of Worcester, but she handles women vocation. And so we're still friends, and I have a great deal of respect for her, for just having the honor to sit down with me and just speak from her heart, and that's what she was doing. And I brought the matter to her about, the prima solicitationis document, and she did not try to hide a thing. She was just like, I think our church was set up so that in situations like these, it's a cause for failure. And so as a result, I've done a tremendous amount of research, and because of you, and because of several of your guests, and it prompted me to look into things like Attorney Levy was on the barrister was on your program. So there's so many things that cause me to ask, what's the basis for the beliefs in this structure that is not lending itself to the advancement of the soul? And what is it that they want to do? So I looked into orthodoxy, and I found out about orthodoxy. And here's the comical part to all of this. I sat down with a couple of priests in the Orthodox Church, and I told them all the rigorous things I had to do in order to attempt to aspire to becoming a hermit under Canon 603 through the Catholic Church. And they laughed, and I showed the book that Sister Paula gave me on what was required. And they said, you have to become a corporation, you have to do all these things practically, to become a hermit. He said, this is nothing like what the early church has done. And I fell in love with the hermit life because of my reading that went back to the year 300 and 100 and 600. St. Benedict is Orthodox and understood to be Orthodox in the year the 600s. So there was a split, as you know, in 1054. Romanism, the Roman wing of the church, broke away from the four other Eastern patriarchates. And so that's a whole other story. I got into some of that on February 28th, 2008 on your radio program, which was wonderful. But here's what I want to read to you. I think this is in your listeners.
Okay, wait, I want to say one thing. I got about 2 minutes, so if this is long, okay, we'll wait till the break, okay?
Okay, you got it. Then we'll hold off on that. But what I would like to do then is just read the one paragraph going back to what St. Benedict says.
Yeah, do that, and then we'll read the whole thing afterwards. But go ahead. We got about a minute and a half.
Perfect. It says in chapter 64, the election of an abbot, the rule of St. Benedict, it says, may God forbid that a whole community should conspire to elect a man who goes along with its own evil ways. But if it does, and if the bishop of the diocese or the abbots or Christians in the area come to know of these evil ways to any extent, they must block the success of this wicked conspiracy and set a worthy steward in charge of God's house. This is so beautiful. And it's written in such a way to say, and he's using the word conspiracy, but he's talking about if the abbot's not serving God's house and God's people, that the people that live in the town near the abbey or the monastery must hold the monastery to account. So it is all of our duty to do that. It's all of our responsibility. It's not just mine. It's everybody's. We're all called to that. And so I just wanted to share that with your listeners. And I think Brother Alphonsus really nailed it on the head when he shared that with me. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
All right, listen, we're gonna take a break, okay, and then come back and talk more with Keri Burnor regarding her book called The Divine Challenge. And she's taken me back in time because I do remember that interview in 2008. And I want to get into some really, really important questions I want to ask Keri when I come back in the second half hour. So stick with us. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. This is the Investigative Journal, and we'll be back in 3 minutes after these short messages.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening. Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Okay, welcome back to the Investigative Journal in the second half hour. On July 19th, 2016, day on our calendar, I'm talking to Keri Burnor. And Keri was a former Catholic nun. Her story is basically really incredible. We all know about the problems of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church worldwide. It's an amazing story when you really start checking it out, not only in America but all over the world. And we're talking to Keri, who's a victim. And let me go, before I get back to her, let me just read a little bit more from the jacket of her book called The Divine Challenge. And she says this, that the facts of this case will show that the trauma suffered even by adult victims of sex abuse stems not only from the act of abuse itself, but even more so from the betrayal, the length of concealment, and the intentionality of the cover-up. My book, this work, like no other, gives a wider perspective in that the victim survivor here recognizes that the offenders are themselves victims of a diabolically designed structure. And if I could add, yes, folks, when I lived in Rome and I started researching this stuff, it was difficult for me to understand because I grew up as a Catholic, of course fell away, became an atheist. And when I was there, to see that they actually are worshiping Satan through all of their signs and symbols, and to see what was really going on, it shook me up. And it took a number of years to even come to grips with that. So I know what she's talking about. I came at it from a different angle. And that was, I was called upon to do stories about the Vatican bank scandal in 1982. I was right there. I was covering it. And my idea was, it can't be this bad. And it is. And what I learned about their financial situation, how they run the biggest money laundering operation in the world through the Vatican Bank, it all led to all the different tentacles that they are involved with. And when she said that many people in the Vatican and the Catholic Church are victims of this diabolically designed structure. That is the way it really is. It's diabolical. It's satanic. Now, I'll go back to Keri. She says she offers a solution to this church and to its worldwide crisis. I'm getting feedback, so watch it. We observe how this nun was able to continue in her true vocation. She not only kept her faith, but saw it grow even stronger. And she has a little picture of, calls it the Christ Wall of Hermitage. And I will ask her what that is again, because I've forgotten, pardon me. But she says this, it not only has a unique name, this Christ, the Wall of Hermitages, but a unique purpose. It seeks to assist victims of clergy sexual abuse and institutional abuse. The betrayal that is experienced can shatter one's faith and one's perspective. The concept or image of Christ as wall has developed and become an expression of my own unique spirituality. Having been abused by a priest and the institution of the Catholic Church, I hope my experience can be beneficial to others. I wish to extend my understanding of Christ as protector to those who long to experience healing, strength, and empowerment in their lives. And it's quite a statement, Keri. Tell us a little bit, so people get it, where you have come in this long journey of, to find this spiritual truth.
Okay, is there an echo if I speak?
No, you're fine.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, well, Christ the Wall of Hermitages is to me what helps me, reminds me, it's a touchstone or a touch brick of what helps me remind myself of who I truly am. And all of us are baby gods. We're little gods. We're God, dogs give birth to dogs, cats give birth to cats, and God gives birth to God. God, little baby gods. So if I am the Creator's daughter, then this, the understanding of Christ the Wall is that I'm a temple of the Holy Spirit, and you are a temple of the Holy Spirit. And all of us in humanity, we are temples of the Holy Spirit, in that sense that, we are all called to embody that light and that love and that truth. We're all called to doing that. But our being, in and of itself, it speaks to that. And so when I think of Christ the Wall of Hermitages, or in that picture, for instance, I think that what is the ground of my being? Who am I really? And what really matters? Does making money matter? I mean, it sure does help. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against that. But what are the things that are going to help me stay in touch with that? And I think that, I described that part of the experience of touching that for the first time was when I was at St. Joseph's Abbey. And I visited the side chapel there, and that's where this whole evolving of almost into a theology, this meditation of, if St. Paul says in the scripture that we are temples of the Holy Spirit, and that, we are living stones, then how could it be that even the stones themselves don't embody that in some way? I believe that all things have a specific kind of like a consciousness or an energy. Even curling photography actually shows that there's an energy in all things, in all beings. And so all of that is to say that what is it that takes us closer to love is the real question. And when someone's going through abuse, they can go through experiences where they believe what was perpetrated against them, and they embody that identity, and they forget their true selves. And I think that there could be a design to that too. But above all, I spoke with Jake Goldenflame, who was on Oprah's show, Oprah Winfrey's show, and we've had several conversations. And he was a former abuser. I was actually in the Bahamas in the year 2003 with my sister and my mom in February, and Jay Goldenflame was on Oprah's program, and I was weeping because he got up there and he sexually abused many children because he was abused himself, and he became responsible. He became responsible for that action and realized what the suffering was that was on the inside of him that caused him the suffering of those on the outside in doing this to other children. And he's the most responsible I've ever met. I mean, I didn't physically meet him. I spoke over the phone, like I've said, several times. And I wanted to understand. I wanted to call him and ask him and say, what goes on in your mind when you're doing these things? I mean, I'm sure there's many people who have interviewed him, too. And so he's explained things to me that helped me get insight into how if we don't have compassion on what we've gone through, if we try to go through levels of concealment and hiding, then we don't recognize that we carry all of the experiences of humanity inside of our own being. And so, for instance, Jake Goldenflame, when he was, I think, at some store or a post office or something, I forget what he said on the show, he said to the mother of a daughter who she just let the daughter kind of, stand outside or go out in the parking lot by herself. And he walked up to her and said, ma'am, I just want to let you know that I'm a registered sex offender, and, you have your daughter, and she's out there by herself, and I just want you to know that people like me look for specific traits. And these are the things I'm looking for when I'm again, he's a reformed sex offender. Mm-hmm. So he's teaching families. He was a perpetrator, and now he is a beautiful example on teaching people how to become responsible. And if we can do that, and again, there's no remedy in any courtroom that will ever touch what Jake Goldenflame does. The courtroom is a very, very low vibration. And it appeals to this fight or flight type of reality. Love very seldom shows up in court. Sometimes you get the story where the family will forgive and so forth and all of that. But generally speaking, that's not the form where any true remedy from God is designed to come through. Courts are basically banks disguised as theater, in my opinion. So with all that being said, if the transformation happens in the heart, it could change a place like a courtroom. And so I just, I wanted to bring that out and bring that forward that, I'm exhorting all of us. Because, again, I'm responsible for what happened at the Abbey as much as the Abbey is. How could I be responsible? How could I be responsible? First of all, it's a spiritual responsibility. It's not that I did something wrong to deserve the priest to do this to me, but if I was aware of how to energetically handle what happened to me as a little girl, I believe that I would have known my true self, and I would have been able to at least steer that type of energy away from me. I believe that. I have a belief that that's something that... Now, does that mean I believe in God's divine providence? It was perfect. Everything happened was absolutely perfect because it taught me how to become responsible. And so in the spiritual realms, again, I'm to pray for those monks. Every one of those monks, and the ones who are perpetrating, okay, it's because there is something that needs love on the inside, and they didn't get it. And if they knew love, they would never have done this. And I'd love to take a little bit of time to read. Oh, go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is, from talking with you over all these years, I remember you telling me when you were a young child you had this spiritual calling, and the path led you to the Vatican, the Catholic Church. Now, the point I'm trying to make is, what you say on the back cover of your book here is that you spend most of your time right now in prayer and spiritual and consultation with people, trying to help people who've been through situations like this. So your calling hasn't changed, but your perspective of it has, and your knowledge of what you've gone through, even whether good or bad, has led you to this point. And how I could relate to you is this, is when my calling was to be nothing more than a messenger, a journalist, and my whole life changed when I realized the calling that I was in, they were corrupt. The very institution I worked for, the media, was corrupt. And the only way I ever learned that was by being close to the biggest house of evil that ever has existed in mankind, and that's right in Rome. And so there is kind of an idea that I have where you cannot just blindly cut these people off. You try to understand who they are, why they are, because they have, without them, I would not be here. I would not be talking the truth if I wasn't faced with the evil that I was faced with as a journalist. So you can understand that it's kind of the same thing, but in different avenues, correct?
Absolutely. And your comfort, Greg, is that of love. And that is your greatest gift. Because when you shed love into such areas of darkness that you're speaking about within journalism, you never know how many other journalists might feel the same way. We'll never know the full impact of what we've done while we're here. And that's going to be pretty exciting, actually, meeting God, and...
yeah, I know every now and then, when you get down sometimes, and I'm sure you feel the same way, and many people do, that, in their life, you'll reach lows and highs. And I remember about a couple months ago, I was kind of dejected one day, going, God, does anybody really follow what I do? And about 2 days later, I get this email from a guy from Holland who said he's been listening to me for 10 years and to keep going on, and he loved the story I just did, and he tried to add some things about what was going on in Holland. So every now and then, you realize that you are touching people, even though it doesn't seem like it, because the mass media and these huge institutions of evil have overcome almost every... the goal, basically, is to not allow people to get this message out, correct?
That's right. But love will always triumph. It will always have the last say.
Well, go ahead. We got about 10 minutes. So tell us more about your book, things that people may find in there.
So keeping in mind that this is the first volume only at this time, what I'd like to have you all do is go to www.clergy-challenge.html. Or if you just want to go to clergyvictim.com, on the left-hand side, there should a series of tabs on the left-hand side that will say Divine Challenge Book Now Available. And if you would be so kind, I'm making it free for availability right now for download. Again, it's PDF version, but we're working on Kindle versions, and we're doing some pretty hard editing and so forth for the actual print of the book. But I would love to have your feedback, and it's very valuable to me. So if you could write me reviews that you would give me permission that I could put up on my reviews page, that would be wonderful. And you may send the review to my email, S as in Sam, K as in Keri, at clergyvictim.com. That's S as in Sam, K as in Keri, at clergyvictim.com. And if for any reason the email just trips up or has a problem, feel free to email Greg on my behalf, and he will forward the email to me. But that email should be working now.
Okay, my email is Greg Beacon.
Going back to the issue
Go ahead.
Of compassion and ourselves, that we're called, to make amends for if this abuse thing is going on. And I believe that I'm called, if we're all to be fully responsible for our reality, that I'm called for deliverance. Someone else is hurting. It's not just me. And the fact that I showed up in a world of these other people, we have true hurt showing up here. True hurt and Abby as a whole. And me as a...
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry for that. I lost Keri on the telephone. We got her back right now. So, Keri, you were getting into some concepts, some things about your book. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was saying essentially that if one goes through these experiences, in my belief, I believe we're called to pray and to love into the problem. And it's taken me many, many years to figure out what the problem is with the Abbey, and also to figure out the problem that's on the inside of me. The only reason we both showed up at the same time on a timeline is because both of us had something to learn from each other. And I can't speak for them or each monk or whatever. I can only work on what I've seen in my own life. And I can only pray and send that love back to the monastery. And again, it's easy to just say the monastery instead of going through every individual. So, okay, what I wanted to do is read a really beautiful poem that I found by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Buddhist monk. And
Okay.
It's called, can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It's called Call Me By My True Names. Do not say that I'll depart tomorrow, because even today I still arrive. Look deeply. I arrive in every second to be a bud on a spring branch, to be a tiny bird with wings still fragile, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I still arrive in order to laugh and to cry, in order to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and the death of all that are alive. I am the mayfly metamorphizing on the surface of the river, and I am the bird which, when spring comes, arrives in time to eat the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear pond, and I am also the grass snake who, approaching in silence, feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks, and I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl, refugee on a small boat, who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate, and I am the pirate. Okay, this is a good...
Is that it?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
My heart, not yet capable of seeing and loving. I am a member of the Holy Girl with plenty of power in my hand, and I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people, dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom in all walks of life. My pain is like a river of tears, so full it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughs all at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and so the door of my heart can be left open, the door of compassion. And the only time we lose is when we don't access that love. And all the times when everybody wins is when our hearts are open to love. In order to do that, we may have to make amends. We may have to open our heart to seeing the darkness that we have embodied or became a part of. That's the only way through all of this, I believe. So that's a beautiful poem. I mean, it's very, very moving, and it really is right on the dime.
We have about 2 minutes. Have you worked with any people that have, experienced the same things as you have as a Catholic nun? Have you tried to bring people out of Catholicism?
I have worked with people not only inside the Catholic Church, but inside of our military, who have been raped, who have undergone such severe trauma that killing is their first instinct. And so, yes, to answer your question, I have worked with many, many different kinds of people, including priests, including lay people in the Catholic Church, including everybody that fits into this modality of being called to becoming love themselves.
Hey, listen, give us your website one more time before we close here.
Okay, it's www.clergyvictim.com, and that's CLERGYVICTIM.com, and this is where we transform victims into victors.
And you can get the book there?
Yes, for free download. Right on the left-hand side will be a tab, Divine Challenge Book Now Available, and you just click on that tab, and it will be a PDF, and it will download for you.
Hey, listen, Keri, I want to thanks a lot for coming on again. It's been nice talking to you after all these years, and let's keep in touch, and we'll have you on again. So go to Keri Burnor's website, and we're all out of time. Thanks, Keri.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's been an honor and a blessing.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.